Well, good morning. And it is morning, and it's Saturday morning, and it's 9 a.m. Well, 9:03. 9:04 just jumped. Anyway, so I was up late last night as usual, trying to prepare for today, and was successful, fortunately. So um, I wanted to go into what a database management system is and what I'm doing for my HyperCard game. Um, there's actually a um, external command uh, set of software that you can get that does a relational database management system for HyperCard. I downloaded it, took a quick look at it, and it was a little crufty to use and frankly overkill for what I needed in the game. At least that's what I thought at the time. So I decided to roll my own. Um, it's not a relational database management system, it's just a database management system. Um, Back in the old days when I first started programming, um, I used to work with DBase and Btrieve and some of the other database tools that were available at the time. Um, my first job out of college, I actually wrote a simple file record management system. Um, I don't know if you guys are familiar with C programming at all, but you can define a structure in C that has fields in it, variables that you can define, and then you can create a array or a list of structures, um, and you could use that as a simple record management system where you could have uh, dump the memory for that array of structures to disk as a file, and then use an offset, the number of bytes for each record, to read that back into memory. And the first program that I wrote outside of college was actually in MS-DOS for a back-end food costing uh, application. They wouldn't let me buy any libraries, so I couldn't buy Btrieve. In fact, I couldn't buy a user interface library. I had to roll my own. Um, but it was a really good project. I enjoyed doing it, and I got the hell out of there after 2 years. So it was a weird situation. But hey, I appreciate um, getting that first job under my belt and moving on. So um, so what is a database management system? Um, I got something here to share. Give me a second. So, still haven't memorized where all the buttons are on my tablet here. So, a database management system. I'm going to read from the slide. Software that allows programmers, database administrators, known as DBAs, software applications, and end users to store, organize, access, query, and manipulate data in a database. Sounds really obvious, but you'll see that something that's missing here is relational. Um, a relational database management system or relational data is I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but it's what most of database systems are built on, have been for years. Um, there was there's some NoSQL and some other ways of managing data that are more flexible. Um, but a relational database management system is usually what you end up doing. So let's let's see who's in the chat. So we've got Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. Unfortunately, Dave had to leave because he's got other things to do, but I appreciate him showing up and saying hello this morning. We have Eric Rangel. Um, No, I can't guess why you're watching Star Trek Enterprise episodes with Agent Daniels. Maybe you could enlighten us. Um, oh, and the book about programming a database in Apple Pascal, I'd be interested in hearing about that book. I'm always looking for interesting programming books and things like that. So um, we have Gut Bomb. Good morning, Gut Bomb. 1-Bit Fever Dreams. Eric, hey gang. Top of the morning to you all. That sounds like a cross between Irish and a southern dialect. All y'all is typically a southern term. Let's see. Everything is broken garage. Greetings. And I believe I've caught up with everyone. Yep. So, oh, Bill Goats. Hey. Glad you could make it. So, let me switch cameras back. So, of course, like I said, I was up late because I, at the last minute last night, decided, I think it was around 8 o'clock, I said, I'm not just going to show off the code that I use for Adventure, which is really a flat file kind of database manager. I went ahead and wrote a SQL interpreter. It only does a primitive select statement with a where clause, but I thought, what the heck? Let me do that. I did it once before. I was working a second job out of college. I was working for a company, and we used btrieve. And SQL was getting warm. Let's see, Microsoft SQL Server was out, the first version of it that was based off of Sybase, I believe. Not too long after that, you had Access came out, and that was a a GUI environment with a database in the background that was okay for individual database applications. You got more than 4 or 5 people in an Access database because it used file sharing, and it would corrupt. So we used to use it as a front end against a SQL Server backend database because you could do forms and reports and things with it. Yeah, Sybase is still around. I can remember messing around with ASE when it first came out because there was a free version of it that you could use for personal use. But I never really got into it, and it's kind of gone out of style since who bought it? Oracle? I don't know. Anyway, somebody purchased it, not Oracle. I'm trying to remember who it is. Solaris is the operating system we run it on. Anyway, we still have one instance of it at work, and we're trying to get rid of it. But anyway, there's lots of different solutions for doing this kind of thing. Rolling your own, doing something simple with files like a comma separated values thing or something like that. HyperCard has some built-in features that allow you to manipulate lists, and it defaults to using comma separated strings to do that. Oh, Gutbomb, your first job was building access-based applications. I'm sorry, but it was actually not a terrible platform. When it first came out, it was really the only kind of environment like that. So I think I did some DBase 3 work when I was going to college for the department I worked for. What else have I used? Didn't do anything in Unix. I've used MySQL and Postgres. I've used a couple of other different database management solutions. Anyway, So back to that second job in Beetrieve. I was writing payroll processing programs, and Beetrieve is not doesn't have a SQL front end, or at least it didn't at the time. But I wrote one in a C program that did a layer on top that did SQL, and it was primitive. And so last night at 8 o'clock, I'm like, I could roll another one in a HyperCard. So I was up until 1 a.m. But I got, your basic select working. So Lotus 123 was used as a database. Yeah. I know a lot of people that still use Outlook as a database or Exchange. You get an email and you shove the email somewhere and you use the search features to find your stuff. So you could think of that as a database too. You used Access for the data, but VB for the front end. That's like an unholy union. Ugh. Which version of VB? So everything is broken garage. The thing I hate about Access is all the government departments in Canada who locked into a in-house Access app and have been riding the app since it was created. Yeah, we have a similar situation. Access is not supported by the department I work for, and I work for agency services, which is between the enterprise and state government in Michigan and the agencies. So we're supposed to serve the agencies. Well, of course, people got a hold of Access and they started doing stuff with it, and there's mission critical applications that are in Access databases, and they shouldn't be. But somebody got smart and thought that the solution to that was to just say we don't support it. When in reality, if somebody gets a corrupted database and it's mission critical, we try to help them anyway. So we're caught between a rock and a hard place. But they're slowly replacing those. So, yeah. Anyway, database systems are expensive sometimes. Oh, there's SQLite. I've used that before for app development, and that's fairly capable. What other database management solutions have I used? Microsoft SQL Server, of course. Anyway, enough about that. So, let's get on to the subject and change screens. So here I have my Power Macintosh G3 system, and I created a HyperCard stack called Tiny DBMS, and it uses underneath the covers some code that I wrote that's just a flat file database. So get to the old code. Okay, so if you could imagine a pretty simple, like a comma separated values file would be each column of the database, or each database field, if you will, is a value, so a string, with a comma at the end as a delimiter between fields. And at the end of that record, because databases are tables with fields in them, and you have different records for each bit of data. So at the end, you usually have a carriage turn line feed or a line feed or something at the end to delimit the end of a record, and then the next line is your next record. So a really simple database would be something like, 1 comma, and 1 is your ID value for your table or something, and then somebody's name, comma, etc. And then carriage turn, line feed, new line, you got a new record. You run into issues with a text-based solution like that. What if your information is, like somebody's sentence is a text string that's in there, a description of something, and it's got a comma embedded in it. So now when you try to parse that, you're like, oh, what about commas that are not delimiters? Well, I've got a string, so I'll put quotes around the string, and anything that's in quotes is ignored. It's a data element, so if there's a comma embedded in there, I don't have to worry about it. So now you've got yet again another delimiter that indicates what the string is. It can get complicated. If you've ever worked with an Excel spreadsheet or a spreadsheet and tried to import comma-separated values into a spreadsheet, you know what I'm talking about. So, yak shaving, yeah. So one of the ways of dealing with that is to come up with, if there was only a character we could use as a delimiter that nobody would ever use in their text. Vertical pipe is one of the common ones. I've seen people use the extended ASCII character set in the dagger or the double dagger, or pick some character that's not used, and then the computer interface has to enforce not using those characters so that you can avoid the situation. Or if somebody enters a vertical pipe in their text, you remove it or substitute a space, or there's different solutions for how to deal with that. A real relational database management system takes care of that internally, and you don't have to worry about these things. But if you're using a flat file, you got to deal with this. So I went with vertical pipe, and I wrote some functions that would deal with a blob of text that uses a vertical pipe as a field separator, and a new line or a return for record separators. And it's all text-based processing, but it's not too bad. HyperCard's got some really nice features where you can refer to items in your list by setting a delimiter, and then you can just repeat through each item that's in that list. So it's nice. You don't have to parse character by character or anything like that. So I wrote some functions that would operate on this, like get record matching key and value. So it's not really a SQL statement. You could think of it as selecting, select star from, table where name equals value. So it's a really simple select statement kind of a function. And this works pretty well for grabbing a single record. In a real relational database system, you could get 0 or more records, depending on what your where clause is for it. But, this was suitable for the game where I just needed to always get a single record. So that's what this function does. It sets the item delimiter, which is defaulted in HyperCard as a comma, to the vertical pipe. It repeats with x = 1 to the number of lines in the data that's passed to it. And then with y = 1 to the number of items in line x of the data. If item y of line x of the data equals the key, so I do key value pairs in there, so it's like the name of the field, vertical pipe, the value of the field, vertical pipe. The next field is the name of the field. So your schema for your table is actually embedded in each record, which is inefficient, but makes it easier for doing queries. So I look for key and value pairs in this list, and then if I find a matching key, I pull the next item from the list as the value. So where does this break down? Some of the border conditions you run into. What if I've got multiple fields named the same? So think of a record where you've got a non-playing character, you've got his name, you've got his health stats, but you have a list of weapons that he carries as part of his inventory. So in this kind of a scenario, let me type that in. So here's an example of something that would break down. Yep, wrong keyboard. Switch keyboard. All right. So here's an example of a record. Let's see. So let's say we need to identify what type of record it is. There's a couple of ways of dealing with this. You could have each file be a table, and that tells you what type of record should be in there. I went the route of actually having a single file with a label to tell you what it is. So table, NPC, name. So you always have key value pairs. Bob. Let's see. Health. 10. Weapon. Axe. Okay, so there's a record, and it's easy. Pretty good. But what if you need a list of? So let's modify this. We're gonna do. This guy can carry more than one thing. So you could have axe, comma, knife, comma, club. You could do something like that. So now what I've got is the weapon is actually weapons instead of just a single weapon. And then you've got a list of things that are separated by commas. You've got to deal with the comma issue. If you're parsing this and you're using a vertical pipe as your delimiter for a field, when you get to this one, you're going to get this list back. This is not normalized. It's not where you should have a separate table that has NPC weapons. So you would have your NPC name. Let's try to keep, well, let's make sure it's NPC name. Bob. Vertical pipe. Weapon. Axe. And then you'd have to do another record. This is how you normalize the database. So you wouldn't want to have, you would want to have a separate table that's got a list of all his weapons. Knife. Club. So in this scenario, you've got your NPC, and you wouldn't have the weapons listed. You would have another table that has NPC weapons. You would have your NPC name, Bob, and that way you could make a relationship between these and say, here's the table that has Bob's weapons. If you had another guy named Frank, yeah, copy and paste. Frank. He could also have a club. And you could query this and you would join between these two tables. Now I'm getting into a relational database. There's a relationship between Bob and his weapons, and you can get the list of weapons. I didn't do this. For the adventure game, what I did was I embedded records within records. So I did, no, I can't undo that. I did this solution where it was like knife, club. Because I was trying to keep it simple. Lisp is one that has a keyboard. I think you're thinking of Lisp might, but it was oh, it starts with an A, doesn't it? AGL, AG. I can't remember the language now. There was one that had a special keyboard for it. Like the assignment statement was an arrow or something like that. Algol, AGOL, ALG, APL. Thank you, Eric. I never messed around with APL. So anyway, so you could see, you could come up with different schemes for doing this. And it can get complicated. Like, well, now I got the problem of using commas. What if I've got, you know, something else? If I use a vertical pipe here, then I can't tell where weapons stops and the list starts. So you start going, well, let's use a semicolon to separate these. Right? Or you do, let's use a curly brace in vertical pipe. And the curly brace indicates that it's a subrecord. Or, you know, you can come up with lots of stuff, but the parsing starts to get difficult. So, my solution inside the adventure game was to use, I think it was to use the colon for sublists. But the code got really sloppy. I was thinking about a JSON parser, and HyperCard would be a way to do it. But I even started looking for a JSON parser that's done in ANSI C, because then you could do an external command in C that would be a JSON parser in Query Engine. So that's something I might do, you know, down the road. But, you know, again, I just wanted something quick and dirty. The code is convoluted as hell and messy, but you know, the next version of Adventure will have a better database management system in it. So anyway, that's how you get a value, and then you can get the actual value instead of the record. You can check to see if a key and value exists. So you're looking for a record that has particular value in it. Get the value matching the name and key. So this was a way to say, you know, because I use the field name quite frequently in here to name things. It's like the primary key for a record. So I wrote a function that was hard-coded based on that field. Or, so you can see how this evolved as I ran into issues that I needed. Add a key and value to a record is really simple because you just dump it in there. Update the value matching the key. One of the things you won't see in any of this text is an iterator method, or something where I can say get the first record, get the second record, get the next record. It's really difficult to do that kind of coding in HyperCard. You have to resort to global variables. I decided I didn't need it for Adventure, so it doesn't do any of that. Alright, so back to the SQL parsing. So in this program, I decided I was going to do, let's add our table. I was going to actually write a SQL parser for it. So table MPC Bob health 10 magic 20 weapon axe enable, sorry, NPC, Frank, health, 2, magic, 2, 1, weapon. Now here's something else you can do. In a relational database management system, you don't have, like in NoSQL, variable fields or fields that are different between records. The idea is to keep it consistent. I haven't gotten to unions and joins. I've only done a simple select statement. So that's something I haven't worked on yet. I started working on this at 8 o'clock last night, so that's a bit too much to expect. But how would I do it? There are a couple of ways. Probably create some kind of super record where I join the two together. Yeah, I have to think about it. So I could do this. I could say disposition friend. Let's copy and paste, make this a little faster. Doug. Let's say he has a knife too. And then who wants to be in here? Gut bomb. We're going to make you magic 12 in your weapon. What's your preferred weapon, Gut bomb? Printer. How about laser printer? Laser writer. Okay, so here's some simple stuff. Let's do a select statement. Select star, which is all fields, from NPC, where weapon equals, well, let's not do a where clause. Just star from NPC. Something's not right. Health magic. See, the offset's not right. What did I do here? Oh. I didn't put name. So you can see this code doesn't look to see if it's well formed. Oops. Oh, great. What did I do? It's locked up. Oh, wonderful. My computer's locked up. No, I haven't implemented order by. Well, that's a howdy do. Yeah, it looks like I totally borked it here. So we'll restart. Let's look at the chat. So build JSON. Yeah, I've always called it JSON instead of JSON. There's no, I mean, maybe it's implied you're supposed to say JSON, but I've always called it JSON. Yeah, I shaved my beard. Um, Quick story behind that. It's been over like 25 years since I saw my face. Um, so I decided I wanted to look and see what I look like. So I shaved it off. Boy, talk about angry face. My face was red for 3 days. Um, Took a look at myself and went, oh, that's what you look like, and then grew it right back. So this is 3 weeks growth. Um, Bee trees. Yeah. Um, Beetrieve is based on doing bee trees, and that's a database management system. Yeah, it'd be interesting to do a deep dive into that. I know you're just being a jerk, Gut Bomb. That's what you're good at. I'm just joking. That was sarcasm. Um, Creating index is easy. You know, there should be an underlying identity column added to these things so that you always have a record number that's unique to the table or to a record. Um, there should be a ordinal for counting the first record versus the next. And you could use line number if you used, a one text blob per table. So there's reasons to do that. This code is really inefficient. It scans the entire thing when you're running a query. The idea behind indexing is that you scan a smaller object so that you can avoid having to do that. So indexes are an optimization technique. I'm not sure how much you would buy doing that in HyperCard. So, and it also complicates the code. So you have to balance the benefit versus doing it. What I did for the adventure game is fast enough for what it needs. Um, but it'd be kind of interesting to just kind of go through and build something in HyperCard, and then translate it to a C program, uh, like use compile it or something to convert it to something to think about anyway. But there's better solutions out there instead of reinventing the wheel. Um, so I'm not going to do joins or anything in this, not yet. Image writers are also weapons, yes. Wouldn't be an old Mac without an occasional freezer bomb. Yeah, I did some key sequence that just screwed it up because I fat fingered. What if Adventure had a special room where you can query Adventure's own labyrinth by typing queries, and one special use object would add an entry? Yeah, I've thought about doing some self-referential code inside. I did a short video a while back on doing lambda expressions inside HyperCard, and the next version of Adventure is going to have code fragments that you could add so that you can do dialogue and things like that is more expressive in the game. And but it requires typing in HyperCard commands into your text objects for the game, which makes testing them and making sure that you're doing correct code a lot more complicated, because it's like an abstraction for the code. But that'll be fun for the next version. Um, or an NPC they inspect its code and rewrite itself. Having rewritable or dynamic NPCs so that their behavior changes is something I want to do. Because you want an NPC to actually, or even the player, to grow and change, and maybe it's as simple as their disposition changes based on their experience, things like that. So you know, you could really get into some odd stuff like creating, I don't know if you guys know Core Wars. It was a genetic algorithm game environment or test environment where you could create code that bred with itself or other code to do a genetic algorithm where it changed the code base, and then it was tested in the game to see if it survived better. But anyway, there could be some interesting things you could do there. HyperCard obviously is not the most efficient way to do that, but you do have an eval style function in HyperCard where you can execute code arbitrarily from a string. So it's possible to do it. Yeah, metaprogramming. I was once brought in as a contractor to fix some application that had been abandoned by a previous contractor. Performance was an issue. Oh God, I hate working on other people's code. All I did was implement indexes and thought I was a wizard. Yeah, well. Yeah, Core Wars is kind of it. There might still be a competition going on, but it's been years since I looked into it. But it was kind of a neat thing. Anyway. Oh, yeah, we're back up. So let's get back into this thing. Hopefully I didn't bomb the thing. I made a copy of it, of course, so I wouldn't lose it. Well, it looks like it's still there. All right, so we were putting name in here. To fix my structure. So another way to do this would be to have the first line of the database describe the schema, but then you lose the flexibility of being able to add things and have a NoSQL like thing. So let's okay, now we got it. So what this does is it just selects all fields, but I could also do name and just get the names, or name and I don't know what it'll do here because look, so I wrote it so that it would actually work if you didn't have the field. That's kind of interesting. That's not valid SQL. It should say, well, it's not a well-formed thing. So let's add a where clause. Where weapon equals knife. We'll execute that. And let's include weapon. There you go. And let's see if it's, I didn't do not equal. What did I do? Oh, let's do this. Magic is greater than 5 or 4, 5. We gotta add magic so we can see it. There. And if it's less than 5. So the code works, at least that far. I cannot do and weapon equals I have not implemented more complex expressions. Now I'm going to show you the code for how I did this, but parsing the where clause is really crude. See, it doesn't work. But there is a way that I could leverage expression execution or evaluation to do this. Let's go to the code. So, And of course I lost my setting for setting the text. Set script text size equal 2. 14. Oh. Nope, that's not it. 2? I always have to look this up. There we go. Make it a little easier to see. Ah, there we go. Okay. Now I've got a problem with the scrolling here. Apparently I've cut off the edge of the screen in this. Yeah. Good enough. Get out of here. There we go. Okay. So I parse a query. So put word 1 of the query into action. So you're assuming certain things for the table here. It has to start out with an action: select, insert, update, delete. If the action is select, then parse the select statement. The parsing of this is a little odd. So I'm repeating from the second word in the query to the number of words in the query. So I'm picking out each word as I go. So I check to see if there's a from. If there is a from. So you can't use the keyword from as a field name. In TrueSQL, there's ways to do that, but this is pretty simple. And then I get word x plus 1 and assume that's the table reference. So your table has to be a single word. Which also means you're no longer in the select list, because the SQL statement syntax is action state, let's see, select list from table name, and of course where is optional. Select list is either a list. Well, I'm not going to do the BNF for this whole thing. I'll just put it in where let's see. The only thing I have implemented right now is call reference operation or operand value. So it's a really simple syntax. Select. So actually this should be, well, let's do a little BNF. So statement equals, is it colon equals? I think it is. Select list is either a list comma separator list or a or asterisk. You get the idea. you know, an operand is, let's see, I did equal to or less than or greater than or I think that's all I did. Alright, so we get into it, we pick out that. I look for a where clause, and then I just take whatever the next word to the end of it as the where clause. And then if you're inside the select list, you do each word of the select list into the select list. So you've eaten up that string, you execute a select, I pass the database to it, the select list, the where clause, the table ref, and I have an implemented insert, update, or delete. Yeah, SQL performance tuning is definitely an art. Database administrators are supposed to understand how to do that and understand the internals for SQL Server performance and to be able to optimize queries and to look at the execution plan for it and do all of that stuff. I've found that there's two kinds of DBAs. There are the DBAs that used to be developers that went into and really do understand the internal workings and how to optimize things. And then there are DBAs that came from a system admin background, don't know anything about query optimization or any of that. They focus on the just twiddling the knobs on SQL Server to try to keep it going. So there's really, I prefer, because I was a developer, I prefer DBAs that have a development background, because now they are subject to the pain that developers impose on database servers, and have real skin in the game about trying to fix that. Whereas there's nothing wrong with people that are, you know, sysops. Obviously we need them, but I don't think they make as good a DBA as somebody that's got a development background. Really, both is the best answer there. You want somebody that knows both, but maybe you need to have two kinds of DBAs that work on stuff. I'm not sure. Okay, so the next thing down here is executing a select statement. So I've passed it the select list, the where clause, and the table ref. And basically you're just going through, I use the get value matching key to get the table field and see if it's the table ref. I'm going through each line of the database. So that way I can have multiple tables defined in the same file. Then I evaluate the where clause, and that if that's true, then I'm able to use this record because it evaluated true for the where clause. And then you go through that select list, and I'm picking out of the table those fields, or if your select list is the asterisk, then I just get them all and then return it. So it's not that difficult. And again, it's really crude and sloppy, but the where clause evaluation only does a single expression. So I remove the double quotes from the value reference because I'm going to do a string comparison. I get the value matching the column reference. I look to see what the operand is, and I say if it's equal, if it's less than, if it's greater than, or, oh, I did do less than or equal, or greater than or equal. And what I do is actually the expression of comparing the value and saying if it's not that, then you failed the evaluation. So it assumes that you're going to evaluate correctly and then checks to see. Now this is built so that you could have multiple expressions. So it would assume the way it's written that they're ANDed together, but I didn't parse that, so it doesn't really have the guts to do it. And then I've just got the rest of the stuff I did. So it's a very crude select parser, but it does work as long as you pass it a well-formed SQL statement that lives within its limitations. And that's it. I threw that together based on my memory and stuff in, let's see, I said I started about 8 o'clock. So 4 hours of fiddling around. Now, is there any value in using this? I could see where having select statements in the game would make it easier for me to think about what I'm trying to do in this code instead of having functions that manipulate this thing directly. So it's a good abstraction layer. Is it worth changing the adventure game to use it? No. It's basically written, but refactoring that game or doing the next version of it, it might be worth building a simple SQL database engine in C as an external command for HyperCard and using it. Like I said, there's already, somebody's got one out there. But when I tried to use it, it was built in the early days of SQL, and it just doesn't work very well for me. I want it to be stupid simple. I think I could build something stupid and simple here that will work. And I could prototype it in HyperCard and then throw it into an external command that would be a lot more efficient. So anyway, there you go. That's the simple tiny DBMS that I'm using. Yeah, adventure games can be used for more than just games. Learning new things, yeah. Anyway, I've had a lot of fun doing this, and you know, if you mixed in, I wanted to talk about how I could do the where clause better. Alright, so I could take this string, whatever the where clause is, look for column references, substitute the value, and then I could just do, there's a function in HyperCard called do. So you can do magic, let's see, 10 less than 5. Can't understand the arguments of 10. Oh, I know. You have to actually have a well-formed, it's not just an expression evaluator. Put 10 less than 5. False. So you can use this to get the result of an expression. What I could do is substitute the value for magic in the record, and if it were 10, it would do the evaluation. I could get the result. That way I could do more of a HyperCard expression as a where clause. So if I did this, and I did and name equals, or name contains ob, since it's a HyperCard expression, that would work. Now, is it SQL? No. But I'm fine with that. If it's something similar to SQL and it's documented so that you know you're doing a HyperCard expression there, why not? Anyway, so that's my idea. I could do a more generic where clause that way, and it should work. It'll also be a lot easier to implement. I wouldn't have to parse through it. Yeah, SQL injection. Yeah, it would be interesting to see if where I could go with it. Anyway, this is why I like doing this. You know, you can. I had a problem to solve, and now I'm being creative. I kind of like that. It's kind of fun. Anyway, um, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. It's 10:04, and I'll get through the commercial bits. Let me switch screens. Why does my tablet screen save? I don't want it to do that. Anyway, thanks for coming. Yeah, I am working on like a demo version of the game because there's so much more work to do on the actual full game. I want to get it out there so that a select number of people can mess around with it and break it. Um, and it's at the point where I'm making sure that it works in different environments. Uh, Sound control doesn't quite work in um, 8.6 the way it does in 7, and I ran into a problem with the external command I'm using for setting the volume. I can't read the volume properly in newer versions. Anyway, so I'm trying to put together something that's just a demo version of it that'll fit on a smaller footprint, like maybe just a single floppy. Wrapping it in Mini VMAX so it's easy to run on a Windows desktop or something, and getting it out there for you guys to test, because I want you guys to break it before I box it, as it were. Um, so I'll try to get that ready by VCF Midwest. That way I'll have it set up on the table, and I'll have it available for download so people can mess around with it. Might not have the editor with it because I want to save that for the box set, but anyway, enough about that. It's coming. It's been over a year. It's been a year and a half I've been working on this thing. I need to wrap it up. So, advertisements. So, I'm on Discord. You can find me on bitbang.social. Eric's Edge videos, you know that because that's where you're at now on YouTube. I have a Patreon if you're interested in that kind of thing. Patreon money goes to other creators, so I'm not really benefiting directly from that, but everybody benefits. That's a great thing about it, including Patreon. They get a cut. To that point, I also have a coffee, and this $300 for beard growth fund is a joke. I've just had to put something up there, and I thought it was funny to do it. I don't need a fund to grow a beard. Obviously, this is 3 weeks of growth. I'm able to do it. It's kind of my superpower. So, but that, stuff in the coffee actually goes to fixing things like this silly hot air station and soldering thing that's still not working right, or for other projects. And this is coming up. I bought some box software, and I'm going to do a install of this and play around with it because it's kind of neat. And some other stuff I got going on. Anyway. So thank you. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you don't like this video, hit the like button anyway. That's the way the algorithm works. Subscribe, all the things. And thank you for coming. So, not sure what I'm going to do in next week's video. I guess we'll find out. What I did today was kind of spur of the moment. I was thinking about doing some Commodore 64 programming, but ran out of time. I don't have things set up for it, so maybe next time. Let's see you guys. Switching to the loud music now.